copies. Again, all of our publications are completely free, so I do encourage that you visit our website and check them out for yourself. Before we get started with the presentation, I just want to go over a few housekeeping items. First, if you will keep yourself muted throughout the presentation so that we can limit any distractions. And second, if you do have any questions during the presentation, feel free to put those questions in the chat. Our presenter is comfortable with being stopped throughout the presentation and asked questions. So if you do have questions, you don't have to wait until the end. You can go ahead and put those in the chat, and then I will ask those questions for you. So this is our first presentation of our domestic violence awareness series. I want to thank our sponsor for our Health and Wellness Awareness Series, Kelsey Siebold. Today, we have an opportunity to hear a presentation over the topic Domestic Violence 101 with John Reyes, who is the Prevention and Education Manager at Aid to Victims of Domestic Abuse. So a little bit about John before I turn it over. John has worked in the service of youth, teens, families, and the community for more than 20 years. He earned his bachelor's degree in human services from Springfield College and has worked for various nonprofits in the greater Houston area. His service capacity and experience range from running after school and summer programs for school-aged youth and teens, managing a charter preschool, teaching middle school, helping at-risk teens with college access, guiding peer-led youth groups with members from across the Houston area and the nation, providing staff and community trainings, managing adult service programs, and providing outreach, abuse prevention, and education programs and presentations across the greater Houston and surrounding areas. John has been a national trainer for the older youth training modules for the YMCA of USA, and has 2 years of experience with Aid to Victims of Domestic Abuse, facilitating, training, and presenting to teens and adults on domestic violence, dating violence, and other related topics. He facilitates national programs such as Safe Dates, Live Respect, and Coaching Boys into Men in private and public schools, as well as alternative schools and detention centers. So we are very fortunate to have him here today to give us this wonderful presentation. And so I am going to turn it over to John and allow him to get started.
Good afternoon, everybody. I almost said good morning. My whole day is just starting to really blend. There's a lot of information on these slides. So the cool thing is that you'll be getting this in the form of a PDF later on. And since the introduction has already been done, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Now, I am going to say at any point, if you have a question, feel free to put it in the chat. I have no problem stopping. I talk fast. I will definitely not read to you because that's boring. And earlier today, I was having a tad bit amount of a technical glitch with my PowerPoint, but I think I fixed it. So hopefully everything is good. I'm going to start off by talking about ABDA's mission. ABDA's been here in the greater Houston area for 40 years now, and the mission is to end family violence by advocating for safety and self-determination of victims, accountability for the abusers, and then just to foster a community of caring and knowledge when it comes to domestic abuse and domestic violence. I'll talk about ABDA's services briefly at the end, and then give you the link to the website if you have any more questions. I like doing with my presentations, specifically ones with my teens, statistics tend to be more of something that they gravitate to other than character values or whatever. So I normally hit teens with statistics, so I figured I'd start this presentation the same way. Every 9 seconds in the United States, a woman is assaulted or battered. Every day in the US, more than 3 women are murdered by their husband, boyfriend, whether it's a current relationship or past relationship. 1 in 4 women experience at least one physical assault from a partner during their adulthood. And 1 in 3 teens has been a victim of physical, sexual, emotional, or verbal abuse in a dating situation. In Texas, the Texas Council on Family Violence is the organization that puts all of Texas statistics when it comes to domestic violence um, together. And normally they're a year and a half behind because of the stories that they also gather when it comes to giving the information. But in October, by the end of October, we'll have 2019 statistics. But for now, 2018, 174 women were killed by a male intimate partner in 2018. The youngest person was 16. The oldest person was 85. One in three of them had already ended their relationships. The majority of them were killed by a firearm, 53% of them, and most of them were killed in their home. 42 of those 174 were killed in Harris County. In 2018, 32 victims were men, but the majority of the men that were killed by their female relationship partner were done so because of the abuse that that male had uh, given to the partner over time. Now, we have had some progress and some challenges in dealing with domestic violence. And like I said, ABDA's been here for 40 years. So we've seen trends come and go and things change. Uh, More people are speaking out about abuse than ever before. There are more services available to survivors of domestic violence than ever before. We're starting to see a shift instead of people asking why the victim stays, the question has become more of why is that person being so abusive. The U2 movement helped a lot in that. We see that the expectations of information that people want in terms of domestic violence has changed. Technology is a blessing and a curse. With technology, you have access to victim services, but at the same time, you can be monitored as far as what you're looking at and what you're doing. People can also abuse you via technology. We'll talk about that later. Social media helps with awareness. Social media is also one of the greatest ways to stalk someone. So again, blessings and curses. 1 in 4 women, again, like we said before, is a victim of a relationship violence in their lifetime. 1 in 9 men experience the same thing, but we don't. And I actually believe that the percentage is probably higher. But there's something about the teachings that guys get, and it's not a written teaching, or it's more of a life experience teaching. Is that you don't tell people. It's not a guy thing. It's not manly to tell someone that you're being abused, whether it's you're being abused by a female or a male. So a lot of those stories and a lot of those reports, they get unreported. So there's a lot of gap, I believe, in the information going out there. Definitely believe it's more than 1 in 9. What is domestic violence? It's a systemic pattern of abusive behaviors. And the biggest thing that you got to remember is that it's about power and control. One partner wants to control the other person and make them dependent on strictly them. And it's, again, a pattern of behavior. You could hit someone once in a domestic partnership, and yes, that's abuse, but all the other types of abuse, it has to be a pattern of behavior. The types of behavior that we talk about, and that I'm going to cover here real quickly, are verbal, emotional and mental, financial abuse, technological abuse, spiritual abuse, and of course the two that you can call the authorities on, which is physical abuse and sexual abuse. Now there's two that are not listed on there, but that have become more and more prevalent, is immigration abuse, using legal status as a way of having power and control over someone, as well as stalking. Stalking has become an even bigger issue than at any time before. Verbal abuse. When you think about verbal abuse, what do you think of? For the most part, a lot of the stuff is just typical cursing and yelling at someone, degrading comments, name calling, put downs, making fun of folks, snapping at them, using a harsh tone. But it can also be things like ignoring your partner's desire to communicate, ignoring their privacy in terms of talking about what's happening with them to other people when they don't want you to, interrupting them, not allowing them to have an opinion, stopping them every time they try to have one. And sarcasm, like with the teens, I tell them, how many of you like sarcastic humor? And you'd be surprised, a lot of them do. But sarcasm in any form is just a safe way of making fun of someone. which is a difficult thing to think about it because the majority of the shows and things that we like are filled with sarcasm. I mean, some of my favorite shows have lots of sarcasm, but in the end, used in the real world, it's a safe way of making fun of somebody, because when you're done saying what you're saying, you wrap it up with, oh, I was just kidding, or I'm just teasing. But enough of that in a pattern behavior is verbal abuse. Emotional abuse, mental, psychological abuse. Again, minimalizing people's feelings, ignoring them, not respecting them, not trusting them at all, controlling their actions. I thought the first one was interesting, driving recklessly, knowing that you have precious cargo in the vehicle with you in the form of someone else, but willing to endanger them and yourself because they don't mean that much to you. Abandoning someone, destroying your partner's property, being selfish. And we'll talk about selfish not only in terms of actions, but selfish in terms of fiscal and monetary. Scaring someone, banging or destroying furniture. Another one that I talk to the young people about is like hitting inanimate objects in their presence. Like, I ask the teens all the time, if you're in an argument with a partner and they punch a hole in the wall right next to your face, what are they basically telling you? They're telling you, A, you're lucky I chose the wall over your face. B, they're telling you, you need to quit that behavior or the next time it will be your face. And 3, they're just trying to intimidate you to keep you from doing anything other than what they want. Another one that form of emotional abuse that has no physical abuse to the victim is abusing their pets. People have very strong emotional connections with their pets, almost like another member of the family. And if that person's abusing the pet, physically abusing or harming the pet, it's only a matter of time till that abuse becomes towards the partner. Financial abuse. When I go talk to groups about financial abuse, it never fails that so many people say, oh, well, that only happens to the uneducated or to the people that don't have means. They get abused financially. It's not true. Anyone can be a victim of financial abuse, withholding money from them, giving them an allowance, not allowing them to have a job, or making them work multiple jobs to support the home so they can sit at home and do nothing. Not validating the partner's contributions. Not everybody contributes to a household at the same level. Making financial decisions without the other person's consent, specifically on large purchases. Making foolish purchases without having the conversation. Not paying child support in a timely manner puts a financial strain on the person that has custody of the children. Hiding money, using money on gambling and substance abuse. One of the craziest stories, I say crazy, one of the stories I remember hearing about financial abuse when I first got to ABDA is there was this lady who, 6-figure income, multiple degrees, was going to wait to get married until she had all her work life and professional stuff established. She met a gentleman, nice, smart, kind. They hit it off very well. After courting for a while, they got married. He was into the financial industry. Upon getting married, he asked if he could be in charge of the finances. She agreed because that's what he did for a living. Big house, new cars every 2 years, all this money in savings. By the 10th year of marriage, the marriage had fallen apart. They had tried going to counseling. Nothing had worked. She was done. She self-admittedly was done with the relationship. It was not working. She hired an attorney to try to get her divorce stuff together. He starts looking into her finances. Her vehicle is about to be repossessed. The house is going into foreclosure. All the money that she said that there was in savings accounts wasn't there. She had 6 credit cards with thousands of dollars of debt maxed out that she didn't even know she had in her name. So if it weren't for the fact that she had, a good paying job and family that could help her with a place to stay, she was going to be homeless and transportationless once she got divorced. So financial abuse can happen to anybody. Technological abuse. This one's big, big, big with the teenagers, but it's also big with adults too, because everybody has a smartphone nowadays. Excessive text or phone calls, blowing up your phone, looking through your phone, um, sexting or asking for sexual explicit pictures and videos, or sending unsolicited sexual pictures and videos, threats over social media, networking sites, social networking sites, excessive monitoring through text, going through your emails, bullying someone, having other people bully you via online through social media, impersonating via social media. I know a young lady who's a friend of mine. She was a coworker at one time. The man she was dating traced her phone, had a way of tracing her phone, and he even had a way of answering her phone calls. Technology, for as much as it is a blessing, she had no idea that while she was not near her phone, if her phone rang, he could have been in another part of the city answering her phone, and he was monitoring her movements through her phone. So technology abuse is a real thing. And again, with the young people, they don't realize that sexting, even if it's consensual with them, anyone under the age of 18 who is sending or receiving nude photographs of anyone under the age of 18, it's a form of it's considered child pornography, and it's a felony. So you could not even be asking for it, you'd be but keeping it or whatever. And if somebody gets your phone, you're in possession of it. You're in possession of child pornography. And what parents don't realize is that the phone is in the parent's name. When they get their hands on that phone, it's still the parent's responsibility because it belonged to them. So they too could even be charged with possession of child pornography. So it's big. It's big and it's scary. I've had conversations with parents where they're like, "Oh, not my kid. We only have one computer in the house." It's like, "Yeah, but does your kid have a gaming system?" "Yeah." "Do they put the earpiece on and play and talk while they play?" "Yeah, yeah, yeah." "Do they do that in the living room?" "No." It's like they're in their room, they're locked in, they have the internet. That gaming system is a computer, and they have access to pornography. Same thing with, "Oh, we don't give them data." Man, McDonald's, Denny's, all these places have free data. Even in the schools, young people have learned how to get through school firewalls when it comes to looking at stuff they shouldn't be looking at, or accessing social media when they're not supposed to be at school. So don't underestimate the savvy of a young person. Spiritual abuse doesn't get talked about a lot, but it's very real. Obstructing the partner from going to their chosen place of worship, ridiculing their place of worship, not letting the kids go to your place of worship. Basically, my kids aren't going to your whack church, where they're going to come to mine because we believe the right things. Pressuring or coercing you into going to their place of worship and their place of worship only. Not Another big one is using God and using doctrine against you. The good book says you're supposed to honor and obey. You're doing a terrible job of obeying. You're disrespecting your faith, or even using your religious beliefs against you to just prove that they're more powerful than your faith. Like, hypothetically speaking, during Ramadan, Muslims don't eat or drink anything from sunup to sundown, yet the partner forces them to consume food or liquid during that time to just show how much more powerful I am than your deity. So those kind of things are considered spiritual abuse. Physical abuse. Again, most people, when you think of physical abuse, it's punch, kick, pull hair, and all those things are, but there are other things that people don't really even think about that are considered physical abuse. Hitting someone with an object, blocking them from leaving is considered obstruction. I may not put my hands on you, or you may be trying to move me, but if I'm not letting you physically go where you want to go, that's a obstruction. Using a weapon of any sort, pinching, slapping, strangling. We're going to talk about strangulation a little bit. Holding someone down, again, obstruction. Twisting of the body parts, pulling at someone. Spitting on someone is considered a form of physical abuse. Strangulation. About 10 years ago, they switched the wording in the penal code from choking to strangulation. Choking is when, like, you have some M&Ms in your mouth and one goes down the wrong way and you start choking on it. Strangulation is using your hands or an object to obstruct air from shutting down the air path on someone's neck and keep them from breathing. Strangulation, I could put my hands around somebody, start strangling them, telling them that this wouldn't be happening if they were acting right, like to the point where their eyes start getting all watery, they're choking, they're crying. I could let them go. They'll be grasping for air, but they'll still be alive. And I said, I could go, if you just act right, I wouldn't have to do those kind of things and I could leave. Well, up to 24 hours after I did that, if I did enough damage, their windpipe could collapse and they could still die. Strangulation is a felony. Because of that, because you don't even have to be present anymore, and death can still happen. But your voice changes when symptoms of strangling, or if you see somebody, their voice changes, their swallowing pattern changes, they're having difficult breathing, it affects the vision, PTSD on anything, and we'll talk about that in terms of abuse behavior as well. Hearing changes, and other things, unconsciousness, headaches, all those things are symptoms of strangulation. But again, if you see somebody, and of course the physical, seeing the marks on their neck. Sexual abuse, and again, when talking to young people, the first thing they think about sexual abuse is rape, and that's probably pretty much the only thing that they consider. But sexual abuse is more than just that. It's unwanted touching, sexually insulting comments. If you're making specific comments about you and your body, it's a form of, and what they want to do, that's a form of sexual abuse. Not accepting no as an answer, threatening, bribing, cheating. As far as like what it says, pornography and whatnot, that's they're using that type of information to get something from you, and that's why they put it in that particular aspect of sexual abuse. Or if they're abusing pornography themselves, people can become addicted to pornography. Again, drugging someone, begging them, holding something against them to make them like they owe you, so they're going to do something sexual for you. In a marriage relationship, you can be raped. Anybody, the biggest thing I tell, especially teenagers, because they really don't understand it, is consent. You don't have a carte blanche consent. Someone can tell you yes. You could get started in an act, and if anything makes them feel uncomfortable and they switch to a no, I don't want, or no, I'm not ready, you've lost consent, and at that point you need to stop and walk away. And young people just don't get that at all, especially the young men that are incarcerated. When I talk to them, they're like, oh, she got me in her place and blah blah blah. It's like, it doesn't matter, because when you go in front of the judge, she's going to ask you at any point, did she say no? And if the answer to that is yes, you're wrong. So consent is important. What can a person do to help? Or what can I do now that I know more about what domestic violence or domestic abuse is? Continue to educate yourself about these different topics and areas. Speak up and speak out when you have an opportunity. I mean, you don't want to ever put yourself in harm's way, but at the same time, if you have an opportunity to educate someone else, you should. Model and mentor. I tell especially the men that I speak to and deal with, a lot of these kids just need a mentor, someone to show them appropriate behavior. In this program that I teach called Live Respect, they talk about something that's called the man box. It's unwritten teachings that young men learn from adult males as to what it means to be a man. And many of these teachings are wrong, and they're modeled and they're talked about and they're shown to boys. I tell boys all the time, young men all the time, girls in a sense are a little bit more lucky, because if a teenage girl or a preteen girl has questions or issues, there's at least one female adult in her life where she could ask that question comfortably and safely and kind of get answers to those questions. Whereas most guys won't ask a question about anything, because questioning makes you seem weak and soft. And so I tell men all the time, model behavior and let the kids in your life, the boys in your life, know that no question is a bad question or a question you shouldn't ask, and try to get the right information. Collaborate and connect with any organization that you know does good work, and support those that are in the front line. Let's talk about some of the warning signs of abusive people and abusive behavior. An abusive person, again, remember, it's a systemic pattern of behavior. They isolate you. They get you initially, the way initially their form of isolation is just flattering of you and saying how much they enjoy just y'all quality time together, and isn't it nice when we're alone, blah 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 blah. But it eventually gets to the point where they start blaming other people for the reasons that y'all are having, that the couple is having issues, and then they try to get their partner not to go back to them for help, assistance, any kind of support. Extreme jealousy. We as people tend to be jealous, but extreme jealousy is knowing a situation and still being jealous, knowing everything involved and still being upset. Possessive of you, your time, and eventually treating you as an object, accusing you of things as cheating. And if one thing psychology has taught us is that if someone is constantly accusing you of cheating, they want to catch you so that they won't feel so guilty about the cheating that they're doing on you. They get mad when you talk to other people. They're very controlling of you. They make you check in or ask permission to do anything. They scare you. I tell young people, man, if your dating partner scares you, you're not with the right dating partner. They make all the decisions. They won't accept a breakup, and they stalk you. Making all the decisions. It's one thing to say, hey, I tell parents and adults when I talk, one of the craziest conversations or the most uncomfortable conversation I ever got in with my ex-wife is when we would go, so what do you want for dinner? Because it would just become this whole, oh my gosh, we don't know. So again, having a decision made, hey, tonight let's do this, that's one thing, but making all the decisions for you, that's something different. The majority of homicides that happen through intimate partner violence happen after the breakup or because the person won't accept the breakup. This is what we call the power and control wheel. These are tools that an abusive person utilizes in terms of trying to keep power and control over their partner. They use threats. They try to coerce you. They use intimidation, whether it's verbal or physical. Definitely use a lot of emotional abuse. They try to break your self-esteem down to the lowest levels so you don't even feel worthy of having the relationship, to the point where it's like, you're lucky that I love you. If I didn't love you, you'd have nothing. Nobody would love you. So they get to that. That definitely isolate you. When it comes out that they're abusive, they minimize the situation. They'll turn it around and blame the victim, or they'll blame circumstance. They'll use children. Again, back to the immigration status. Many times it's, if you leave me, I'm going to have you deported. I'm going to keep the kids. There's no way that you could ever support those kids without me. Male privilege, that's basically the whole, it's just what guys do, that's just what a boy does kind of thing. And being respectful isn't a gender thing. And using economic abuse. Power and control, back to those behaviors. Quick involvement. That person that, I can give you even a personal example. My niece, my adult niece, when she introduced me to this guy that she eventually had a long-standing relationship with, we were hanging out. It was real laid back, large group environment. Yes, we had all been drinking a little bit, but one of the things that was the biggest red flag is later on the evening, he goes, this was in February. He goes, by May, I'm going to be married to her. And I was just like, whoa, y'all just met, and you're telling me, a close family member, that y'all are going to get married? That you are going to be married to her? That's just too aggressive. It's too quick. It's for an abusive person, that's a quick fix. It's somebody to put in my life because I've obviously eliminated other things and other people that I'm going to pull in the next person. They have past behaviors. They blame and minimize. And again, a lot of the things are repeating. But the thing you also have to remember, if someone's partner threatens violence, it's just a matter of time before they actually commit violence. Contributing factors, we talk about people that have anger issues, substance abuse, the environment that they grew up in, PTSD from traumatic experiences, mental disorder, stress. But in the end, abusive behavior is a choice that someone makes, because you could be raised in a home that had a lot of domestic violence and not be an abusive person. You could, be someone who's quick to get mad at things, but never be abusive to the people around you. So, uh, domestic abuse is a choice. We talk about the cycle of violence. Uh, Again, back to everything being a pattern. And the way I tell the young people, for as much as this circle kind of gives it all, is like when two people meet, everything's great because they like each other, everything's wonderful. And then you come into this routine. You're with this person, you're in this routine. And the next thing you know, little by little, the abusive behavior comes out in that person, through jokes, through making fun of them, picking on them, belittling them, making requests that they weren't making before, getting angry quickly. Something that the victim in this partnership does will trigger that response that will cause the incident, whether it's physical or sexual incident. And at that moment, right after it happens, there'll be the excuses, the minimalizing, and the blaming of it. Oh, it's just because of stress at work. And you know that I'm not good at handling this, that, and the other. And at that point, the victim has the chance to say, you know what? I deserve better than that. Or they forgive and move on. When they forgive and move on, it goes back to honeymoon and everything's great and I'm sorry and I love you. Then it becomes routine and it continues to go in a circle. For as long as you continue to forgive and move on with an abusive person, they will continue that cycle and every incident will be worse than the one before. Generational cycles of violence. If you were a female and you were raised in a home where there was uh, abuse, let's just say, not whether it was to you or to your mother or someone else in the house, you were twice as likely to get yourself involved when you become an adult with an abusive person. If you're a male that grew up in an abusive home and either your father abused you or you witnessed abuse to your mother, you are twice as likely to abuse your partner when you become an adult because you learn that as normal behavior. And okay, I'm not going to read them all, but again, back to trauma. A lot of the things that trauma is the building block of most things that create thought and learned patterns. We have the power and control wheel. We also have one for children and their behavior, and it's normally very polarizing. Like emotionally, they're either going to be an angry person or they're going to be someone who's guilty and fearful. They're going to either act out or they're going to withdraw. You know, they're going to be a caretaker their whole life, or they're going to be someone who's always defensive. They're going to have problems learning because of short attention span. Their mind is wandering to all those other things, or they're going to have no reaction to anything. They're not going to feel anything. Some kids feel responsible for what's going on in their parents' world, and some of them, end up blaming everybody else for what's going on in their home. So there's a lot of different things that affect the way children develop when they're around domestic violence growing up. That's not what I wanted to do. Why are we doing that? Okay, let's talk about some of the stuff ABDA does. I've been rolling really fast. I'm looking forward to the questions. ABDA provides legal advocacy programs for free. 40 years ago, that's how we started providing legal advocacy services for survivors of domestic violence. In Harris County, those are our main office is here in downtown Houston. We have one in Fort Bend County in the United Way building there. And then we have one for Austin, Grimes, Waller, and Washington counties. Now, what our legal services are everything from protective orders to help with divorce, child custody, things like that. A lot of times, survivors of domestic violence have a hard time getting away because they know that they couldn't financially support that disconnection. Again, abusive people tend to use finance as a way of controlling their partner and having control of the family. So that's one of the tools that we give them. We also have advocacy programs where we help people with safety planning. We help contact them with resources that they may need for other things such as shelter, or we do counseling here in the office for survivors and their children. We also we were one of the first organizations in the greater Houston area to do battery intervention and prevention program, BIP program. Most people that come to BIP are court ordered. They did something, they got incarcerated, and one of their conditions of parole is to take a battery intervention and prevention program. But we also have people that come in and do BIP willingly and free now, I mean, all of their own free will. BIP is a paid for service. It's an 18-week class. And it's all about accountability of the abuser. 96% of the partners of the people that we've had come through BIP feel safer after the person has gone through the BIP program. I've sat through several BIP programs, and it's really neat to see the diversity of the people in there. When people think about those kind of programs, they normally stereotype in their mind who's in there. Everything from businessmen, lawyers, professional athletes, to people that are one more visit to the penitentiary from never leaving again. We have 2 programs that are for women only. So yes, women can be abusers as well. And we also have Spanish language ones, and when we were meeting in person, they were all around town. Now all the classes are pretty much virtual till we get back to a little bit more sense of being able to socially gather. And then again, community awareness and prevention, the education programs I do with young people. We do outreach. We train frontline staff in various different areas, medical, law enforcement, to help them understand domestic violence a little bit more. How can you help? Recognize the signs, because you know them now. Respond respectfully when you think somebody that you know and care for is in that kind of situation. Don't be accusational of their partner or whatever. Just say, hey, I noticed this. Is everything okay? I'm here if you need me. I know of somebody who can help you. Don't ever, again, try to think that you can fix the situation, because it's not on you. You're not capable. You just need to let them know that you understand and pass them on to somebody who could help them if they need specific types of help. Worst thing you can do is bash the abuser, because that abuser already has a hand on this person. And a lot of times, even if they want to leave, sometimes they're still emotionally attached to that person. So you don't want to bash the abuser. Just always focus on the victim and how you can help them. So let me go ahead and get out of this then. Are there any questions? I know that was a lot.
Yes, we do actually have some questions. The first question is, if you suspect or know someone who you feel, if you suspect that someone you know is being abused, what should you do? What is your first move? Again,
back to what we were talking about, recognize and just let them know that what you see, you may be seeing something wrong. You may have a skewed view, or you may be on point on what you see because you know the warning signs. Let them know that you see that and that you're there for them. If they want your help, if they open up to you at that point, then it's about helping them create a safety plan, or helping them get to the resources that they need, referring them to somebody that can help them with the next steps. Because it really is not the average person, the average woman who leaves an abusive relationship does it on the 8th attempt. And by the 8th attempt, it's because their life was threatened.
Great. The next question is, how often do men who are being abused reach out for help? And do they even realize that they're being abused?
Like I said, it says 1 in every 9 has experienced. I really believe the number is probably closer to 1 in every 6. I think some men don't realize it's abuse. Teenagers, and this is something I can tell you because I see it every time I go into those classrooms, or when I would, they've become to culturally become acceptable of abusive behavior. A slap or a hit as a response to a comment that they didn't like has become normal. And it baffles me, but I even saw it. I just given the presentation about teen dating abuse, and I told them that any physical contact, unwanted physical contact with someone is a form of physical abuse, and that it's not okay to put your hands on somebody when you don't like an action or a comment. The class ended. This boy took a picture of this girl while she was sitting there laughing, blah, 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 shows her the picture. She hits him and says, delete that. We just talked about how putting your hands on somebody is not an acceptable form. But anyway, but yeah, a lot of times guys don't see, and when I talk to the young men even, I'll give you an example of technological abuse. There's something about a early to mid 20-year-old and their relationships that to me as an old guy is baffling. A lot of young men that I speak to between 22 and 25 have told me that their partner, their girlfriend has told them, well, if you love me, you'd give me the password to your phone and to your social media so that I can make sure that you're not doing anything wrong. And I'm like, no, that's wrong of them to ask that of you. Unless you've done something to warrant their lack of trust, they're abusing you through technology. They're trying to control you through technology. So and they don't see it as, they're just like, okay, I guess I gotta. So yeah, I think a lot of times men don't realize it. Back to, if you know a man who is being abused in one way, shape, or form through what you've seen in terms of what you recognize, let them know that, hey, you should really look into such and such. It'll show you the different types of abuse that are out there.
Okay, thank you. And I guess kind of going off of that, something that popped into my mind, and this may be something that's more of a personal opinion that you have. How much do you think TV shows and movies nowadays are normalizing this kind of like abusive behavior, that kids are not thinking that it's abuse because they're seeing it?
Back to the program, Live Respect, that I do with the young men. One entire section is on media and the way it affects social and cultural norms and objectification. And I think it starts with that. Media draws them a picture or paints them a picture of a cultural norm of disrespect, of disrespecting people, of not tolerating disrespect of you, but it's okay for you to disrespect others. And yeah, we've had conversations even about marketing and advertisement, and how that is also paints certain pictures of how, specifically guys, how guys are supposed to be and how guys are supposed to react. But I think it's for both, because at the same time with girls growing up, they're looking at images in the magazines or on the websites that they're looking at in terms of fashion and makeup, and then you still have to buy this stuff. So when you start looking for it, the picture that they paint of what beauty is very, very narrow and limited, and very few people fit into those categories. And so you're already starting with low self-worth. And when you feel bad about you take it out on other people, and that's what they're being taught. So yeah, for sure, television and movies, the violence, the uh, desensitizing of young people, it's real.
Thank you for that. So the next question is, um, so a little statement. My son's wife in December slashed all four of his tires. Should we be concerned for his safety? Now she is verbally abusive to my 11-year-old granddaughter. Is she in danger? So I think that's kind of like a two-part question.
If, again, back to when we talked about mental emotional abuse, doing that to those tires was her way of saying, I didn't hurt you, but I'm capable of doing something. She was laying the groundwork for who she's capable of being. Will she ever be that? You really don't know. I mean, people do strange things sometimes. But if this is a pattern, if her behavior is patternistic, definitely degrading your child, constantly talking bad about your child. My I'm going to go ahead and get personal with you. My dad never physically abused me ever. He never physically abused my mother. But in growing up, nothing I ever did was good enough for him. And in a sense, my feeling of self-worth and what I thought I was worth or what I thought I could accomplish, it didn't matter how good I was at stuff, because I was good at lots of things. It was never good enough. So you stop trying, you stop caring. So that your grandchild, in a sense, could start getting to the point where nothing is good enough if it's a continuous pattern of that kind of emotional abuse. Now, as a grandparent, you're limited on what you can do as far as engaging or interacting or trying to stop. The only thing you can do is have the conversation with your son privately about, hey, these are, from what I've seen or from what you've told me, these are patterns of abusive behavior. You should start getting more information about it. This isn't a good thing. Again, it comes down to your son wanting to make that choice.
Thank you. That was a great answer. So moving forward, I feel like people are very aware of resources for physical abuse, and I know that you mentioned the Batter's Intervention programming that ABDA offers. Do you know of anything similar, of any programs or resources for people who are in emotionally or verbally abusive relationships?
My suggestion on that is first seek counseling yourself. It's very difficult. And one of the things that I would recommend is, if you're being emotionally and mentally abused and you know you're being emotionally and mentally abused, don't seek couples counseling. That becomes a tool for the abuser to just keep pushing it in front of somebody who's a third party, pushing back on how all of this is your fault. First, they'll deny that there's even an issue. Then they'll make you the problem. And then when it comes to them having to address their issues, they'll shut off. They'll stop going. And you've wasted time and money. So I think that if you need help with what you've dealt with as far as mental, emotional, verbal abuse, counseling. But again, if you already know that it's a pattern of behavior, the next thing would be is find an organization. ABDA does it too, that helps you with safety planning. Because if they've gotten to the point where they're hitting inanimate objects, or they're doing the things like that one lady said, daughter-in-law slashing tires, it's already starting to escalate. Any form of escalation, and definitely if you see a pattern. Now, if you and I are in a relationship and you get frustrated with me and you call me a bunch of names, or you say something to me one time out of anger, but it's not a pattern, that's just somebody that didn't quite deal well with whatever the situation was. You got to remember, for mental, emotional abuse and verbal abuse, it's got to be a pattern. Look for the pattern, and then look for that cycle too, where I'm sorry, everything gets better, something happens, the tension builds, boom, all over again.
Okay, thank you. That was really great advice. I feel like a lot of people would think to do couples counseling. So I love that you kind of pointed out reasons why that shouldn't be what you go to. So the next question is, so earlier in the presentation, you mentioned briefly immigration abuse, and you touched on it a little bit throughout the presentation. Are there any resources available for people who may be fearful because of their immigration status, but they are in abusive relationships?
Yeah, when it comes to child custody and things like that, the courts won't focus on your status at all. It becomes about separating amicably or whatever. It's about ending that union. But if you don't know that, you're just hearing your abuser tell you that I'm going to have you deported. And again, someone who is here illegally and has immigration issues or immigration status issues is going to be fearful of being, sent away. So if you have absolutely no other resources, what's the two places? Long Star Legal Aid and volunteer lawyers, both of those organizations will at least answer your questions. I don't have any other places that I know on the top of my head. But again, if you were to call ABDA, you're you're in an abusive relationship, whatever, and you have those questions. If our advocates can't answer the question for you, they'll refer you to someone who specializes in that.
Thank you so much. I know that that's a big problem. I know people who are personally um, abused because of their status, and so I was just curious to know, what could be done to help them out. So I know that not next week, but the week after, we're going to be talking about teen dating abuse prevention. But this question might I think it definitely applies there, but it'll give us a nice little preview of what is to come. How can we talk about domestic violence and abuse with, like, I guess maybe teenagers or even younger children? How can we talk to them about it and, let them know that it is a serious issue, kind of what it looks like? How do you even begin that conversation?
I think with teenagers, they're to the point where whether they've witnessed it at home or they're starting to experience it in their own little world. I think it's a little easier to kind of be able to start that conversation in that adult tone. I think with younger kids, it's just a matter of reinforcing that it's not okay. It's not normal behavior. It's okay if they've experienced it and they feel bad, something wrong with them and about it, but it's not their fault. It's not okay. I think what ends up happening is that if they see it over a course of time, it becomes okay and normalized. And we just have to reinforce to them that it's not okay, and it's okay to be upset. It's okay to hurt because you've seen it. Biggest thing about dealing it with your teenager, especially if you think that your teenager's in an abusive relationship, only 30% of teenagers even report that they're in an abusive relationship, because so many of them, it's their first experience with relationships and quote unquote love. They don't want.
Uh-oh. We have frozen.
Kayla, I think the sound's back.
Okay.
Did we lose John?
We did lose John.
Um,
Okay, well, I just want to take this opportunity to thank everyone for joining today's presentation. We are going to have another opportunity to have a presentation with John. He will be speaking on teen dating abuse prevention on the 21st. So not next week, but the week after. So if there are any questions that you think of between now and then, I'm sure he is more than willing to answer those during his next presentation. If you have any questions or comments for us, you can feel free to email me at healtheducator@thewomensfund.org. And I also want to mention that we are doing a survey raffle. So if you visit this link or use this QR code and take our survey over today's presentation, your name will be entered into a drawing for a $25 gift card. I will be sending out the survey link along with the presentation slides in a follow-up email. And hi, John, you're back.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there. I'm in the middle of talking my face off, and then boom, gone.
That's okay. I was just telling everyone, thanks for joining in, and that if they had any questions, we'll be seeing you again on the 21st. So we're definitely looking forward to that presentation, and that I will be sending out the slides from your presentation today. So I do want to thank you for joining. Is there anything else that you would like to add?
No, other than, again, if you have those questions, any questions that pop up, do the research, call an organization that can give you that kind of information, because again, nothing worse than to sit on the outside of an abusive relationship, but still being directly affected because it's a loved one, and being hopeless. I mean, or feeling like your hands are tied. For the most part, it is the decision, the final decision of the person that's being abused to do something about it. All you can do is be supportive and be there for them.
Thank you so much for that. That is definitely a great way to end today's presentation. So thank you all for joining, and I will stick on for a few minutes just because we are a little bit early, a couple minutes with wrapping up, if anyone has any questions. Other than that, oh, I do have another slide. Almost forgot. So we do have a couple of presentations coming up. Later this evening, I will be leading a presentation over conflict resolution. On the 13th, we have anxiety and mood disorders. Next Wednesday from 2 to 3, we have our second presentation of the Domestic Violence Awareness Series over supporting survivors in the wake of COVID. On the 15th, we will be having a presentation over accountability and responsibility. And then there's a repeat presentation over conflict resolution. So if you're interested in registering for any of our presentations, you can do so on our website, thewomensfund.org. Here are also our social media sites so that you can follow us and see what we're up to. Yes, the comments are all very positive, thanking you for this wonderful information. So thank you again so much for being here today.
Thank you all.
Bye.